sure you guys were shocked when we were coming up here. One of the challenges that we've been facing, obviously, since I arrived here is just the issues around COVID. And obviously when the university put in a mandate to have masks and everything inside, I said, let's do something outside. And this kind of popped in my head. This little area, obviously, Memorial Stadium and everything that means has been something we've been trying to educate our players. I thought the power of George McDonald since I hired him is unbelievable. So I've given all of our assistant coaches had a topic to talk to our players. And Coach McDonald actually, one of the things he talked about was the stadium and what these columns mean, what they represent, gave the number of 200, the number of names were engraved on the bottom of them, and the history. Then he went into different things about the Victory Shield and what that represented and different things. And literally like 2 days later, I'm sitting in my car and one of our players is FaceTiming me. And I mean, I FaceTime all the time with recruits, but not usually my current roster. And it was three of our current guys were up here in the columns in the middle of the day looking at what Gio had talked to him about. And I thought, that's when we've got something. That's when we began to understand that we're reaching them on a lot different level than just maybe on the football field. And then during recruiting, because of all the restrictions and meals and where we could eat, we actually ate a majority of our recruiting meals in the stadium here. And when we were leaving the stadium with our recruits, we'd come in around dinner time and obviously still be lit. We'd leave at night or later in the evening, about 8:30, 9 o'clock, and we would bring them through here for a photo opportunity when it was lit up orange. And it was really kind of one of those moments that really just hit me as a head coach about how much beauty there is in the inside of the stadium, but what this place is all about the beauty and the people that the stadium is obviously named after and the people that come in here. So I thought it was only fitting to come up here and have our press conference because it checked the box in several categories, right? We didn't have to wear masks and we could be outside in an open air environment, but also talk a little bit about our stadium. So excited to get to August 28th. Since I came here, the first game that we thought was going to be in Ireland and was all for that and everything that represented. But when it became clear that probably wasn't going to go through because of different things going on in the world we live in, the opportunity to play our first game here in Memorial and to open up the college football season was just something that I couldn't ask for anything better. So our guys have been progressing nicely to get to that point. We've had a good camp to this point. We wrapped up today with another solid week. We had basically a 6-day work week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We'll actually, by NCAA rules, give them tomorrow off. From a physical standpoint, they'll come over, do some recovery. We can meet with them for 2 hours, and then Monday we'll jump into our biggest scrimmage of the fall camp. So from a health standpoint, had a lot of guys in and out with some maintenance, had some other guys get some soft tissue issues and some things that obviously have caused certain guys to miss a couple days of camp here and there, but there isn't anybody other than Jordan that we think will be a part of what we were trying to get done for our opener that won't be with us, right? So everything's moving in the right direction in that regards. As far as competition, I know you guys will have a lot of questions, but just pure logistics of where we're at. We'll slowly transition after Monday, get some corrections on Tuesday, and Wednesday we'll kind of start our first real true 100% introduction to Nebraska and the game plan that goes into that. We'll still obviously work some good on good and do a lot of things with our current roster, just making sure that they have an edge to them, but we will start our official Nebraska preparation and kind of jump into that offense, defense, special teams and see where that can go. So before we move on, I did want to pass along regards to Bob Asmussen. Obviously, a lot of you guys that know him, I know he's going through a challenge in a personal way, so we want to give all of our prayers here from Illinois football out to him and thinking about him and his family and continued recovery hopefully for him. So with that, open it up for some questions. Alec Bryant? Yeah, we there's different things we got to check the box on. Got word today that we could comment on Alec. He's in a process now where he's actually on campus. He's got to go through still 3 days of protocol before he can jump into it. And then when he gets into us, hopefully on Monday, if everything goes forward the way it should, then he's got to do through the NCAA progression through just like everybody else that starts fall camp. So won't really fully be with us and on the same level until about a week from now. But very excited about Alec and the opportunity that he brings us. I think we've been pretty diligent in our pursuits of the portal transfer. opportunities that exist, and really the outside linebacker is an area that we've been looking at just from a pure number standpoint. It's kind of a new position for us, as something that wasn't really on the old roster. We've kind of blended in some defensive ends, some backers, and Alec jumped out to us when he became available. Now he transitioned out of his previous school after July 1st, so he's technically ineligible. We've started a waiver process and see where that can go. Yeah, I obviously watched high school film, watched Virginia Tech film. Think he could be an outside linebacker, defensive end type, kind of like in that Owen Carney world. Kind of a bigger body that plays with some physicality, but obviously I haven't had a chance to ever work with him individually, so we'll see what he gets. We'll see what he's like when he gets here.
How do you gauge progression, readiness during training camp as you get closer to the
A really good question. I would say we gauge really just by the growth from yesterday, right? Everybody's on a different level. You got guys that are 6-year seniors, guys that are going into what would be a normal 5th-year senior, 4-year, 3-year, 2-year, so forth. So everybody's kind of on a different level. Collectively, as an offense, you have certain thoughts. Defense, a punt unit, a punt return unit. But I think you just kind of go off of where you were yesterday. I keep telling our guys, it's not about where we're at, it's where we're going. And these guys have taken a daily approach. There's days that I think we've had big gains, all right? There's only been a few where I didn't know if we move forward, and I've challenged them with that. But I think overall, if you look at one of the things I try to do over the weekend, I'll do it again tonight and tomorrow, is look at where we are, we just finished practice number 12, go back and look where we were after practice 12, which is actually our spring game, in the spring. And I know where we are now, and I know where we were then, so I think we're moving in the right direction. Yeah, again, it's each kid's a little bit different, and then it depends on the package. I think the more multiple we can be, the better we'll all feel. I think the name of the game in today's world is being able to play against multiple offensive schemes, within a week. One of the challenges that the NCAA, gives a college coach and in turn a college football player is they only give you 20 hours of work week to get ready for a game on Saturday. And in the NFL, we would have a game on Sunday. Whenever that was done, you were usually done, whether you were getting home at 3 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon, depending on when the game was. Monday you would come in and work. Tuesday was a day off for the players. But on Wednesday, at the end of practice, usually by the amount of hours they put in on Monday, came in and volunteered on Tuesday, and the hours they put in on Wednesday, you were usually through 20 hours by halfway through the week. And just the volume that you could teach them, give them, gauge them, is just so different for a college player on many different levels. So I think the outside linebacker world is kind of in that same world, right? Like one week they may play a certain type of technique against a certain type of offense that maybe has no tight ends. Then you go and play against Wisconsin and Iowa, and you got multiple tight ends on the field. That position has to be very multiple. Yeah. Yeah, it's to be honest, one of the things I think is the biggest challenge is just having the super senior class blend in with the senior class. So when we have NFL scouts, we had 3 in here today, right? I've got a list of guys that are 6-year super seniors, and then you got a list of guys that potentially are seniors but could be, guys that return. So it's just a very unique time. So with that being said, I've kind of just called them all seniors, right? And I even lose track. I mean, I do know in the back of my head who has no option but to leave and who has options to come back. But I've really tried to blend that super senior class into the senior class, right? And even like today when you're meeting with all the media or you meet with all the players, I thought it was very important for them to meet with everybody, right? Like I want this team to know it's how we all play, not how one plays, right? And when dealing with the media, I want them all to have an opportunity to speak to you if you want to speak to them. So the more inclusive we can be rather than exclusive, I think it helps us out. But super seniors that are in their 6th year, you can't ignore the fact that they've been here 6 years, right? It sounds like a line from Animal House, right? Everybody wants to stay for that 6th year, but like they've lived through a lot, right? They've lived through coaching change, they've lived through COVID, they've done some things that maybe have been very memorable on a positive note, but also some things that have been memorable for a negative moment, and they've championed it. And again, I stress all the time to them, it's not where we've been, it's where we're going, and I think they bought into that.
Talking about some of those super seniors, how have they shown leadership towards the rest of the team? What do you see them doing once it gets closer to the game?
Yeah, without a doubt, I think just getting to know their personalities better. It was interesting, right? So in December and January and February, as I'm getting to know them, I'm around them a little bit, but a lot of the time was on Zoom, right? And then we get into spring ball, and you're around them, but they're feeling you out, you're feeling them out. I'm just trying to get a chance to know them and understand them. And now, I think going into fall camp and really every week we're together to see their personalities come through and how to lean on them. Like I know when I need to call OC, and I know when I need to call Vidarian, right? I know when I need to call Doug Kramer, and I know when I need to call Tony Adams, right? Like I just know who they are and what they can do and the strings they can pull in the locker room as well as on the field and who you can challenge. I would tell you that our guys probably would share with you, I go at our best players. Like when I'm trying to make a point, if I can make a point at one of our good players that's been around here, that's what I do, right? Like, so I think that probably jumps out to them a little bit different than what they've been used to. And I don't think it's anything out of anything but love. Like I told them, like, hey, if I'm saying something to you, it's because I want you to be better than you are, right? And I think they buy into that 100 times over. Disadvantage, yeah. The opportunity is that we get a chance, like I said, from my day one, is we get a chance to, for them to hit redo on a senior year that they didn't know would ever happen, right? They didn't know, going into this thing, and then, for heaven's sakes, their season was canceled, right? Their senior season, what had to be going through a mind of a fifth-year senior or someone that was in their last year of eligibility when they announced the Big Ten season was canceled, right? I can't imagine what went through their mind. And then to have it reopen, but then also to go through the struggles that they did, and then ultimately to have a coaching change and have some new guy come in and talk to them. Like they've been through a lot. And I said this from my opening press conference to where we are now. I think men are defined more by moments of adversity than they are by success. And they've unfortunately had a lot of adversity, and I think they want to write a different story, right, than maybe the one that was written. But I say to them all the time, like, just because you have all the right intentions and you've done all the right things and you're working extremely hard and you're responsive and you pay attention, it doesn't guarantee success. Nebraska is doing the same exact thing, right? I follow all their media, I follow social media, I follow players and coaches and absorb what they're saying and hearing, and there's a lot of the same things, right? So we just finished, whether it was practice 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12, Nebraska has that same opportunity. So does in Iowa, so does in Northwestern, so does in Wisconsin, so does in Purdue, so does in Maryland. Everybody that we're going to see in our schedule has all of those same opportunities. It's about what we do with it, right? The downfall of it, to your point, or the negative is, right, you potentially have 42 seniors that could be walking out the door. Now, the reality is probably not all of them are, but there's a certain number that don't have a choice. They're gone. And then those other guys, the NCAA is still – they're saying they're not going to give relief, but there's a lot of places that, there's going to be the whole scholarship count, and there's a lot of things that this COVID created that I don't think everybody's given all the answers to yet, and we're still working through that. I appreciate the question, but I don't think I would hire anybody that feels a sense of urgency more now than hopefully they do in the future. I think there's a certain sense of urgency for our coaches to be great, right? Like I've got a room full of coaches that there are 10 guys that try to be the best coach in the room every day. And not only from the way they recruit, from the way they, build relationships with their players, to the way they handle practice, the way they fill out a practice report, to the way they talk to their team on an assigned topic that I gave them. Like Ryan and TP started those talks and gave 10 talks, and I think if you ask our players, like every one of them set the bar a little bit higher. Aaron Henry and Ben Miller gave the last talks on the last of the assistant coaches, and both of them carried a message that brought everybody to a level of learning that was really awesome, including me. So I think there's a challenge there. Yeah, I don't know anything other than what you know. Like I really, one of the great things about fall camp is you really don't worry about anything but fall camp. I know that Bret and some of the athletic communication people said, hey, you're going to get this question, and honesty is always the best policy, right? I literally don't know anything about what you're talking about. Yeah. So that's probably a good question to clarify. So when you say D line, I don't know what you're specific, but yeah. So like everybody that works with JMO is what it's saying, right? So that's the D line as we kind of see it in our program. I think there's a couple guys that jump out. I would say Keith has been a guy that from day one shows a lot of ability to probably play both inside and outside. Calvin Avery has been a guy that flashes. Rod Perry, again, is a guy that shows up routinely. I haven't been able to see Bobo all that much, just because of what's going on. Johnny Newton has been a kind of a guy that has stood out to me since day one, since I got here, just the way he kind of does everything, the way he goes through practice, the way he just moves, communicates. He's got his own way of kind of doing things, which is really impressive. And really, that's probably about it. I can't think of anybody else. Sometimes I forget guys' names, but they've really been an impressive group. And I will tell you this: like we just got done with an inside drill on Friday, and I told JMO and Kevin Kane, our outside linebacker coach, when I came in, I watched it late last night and came in this morning. That was probably our best inside drill of the fall, and it's just playing with extension, doing the things we're asking them to do, learning them to play a technique maybe that they haven't played before. So it's been fun in that regard.
What is it about him and working with him in the past that allows him to bring the best out of this group and really get them to work together?
Terrence is a guy that I do believe. Obviously, there's a exception to every rule, but I've learned this in coaching, and I think maybe I was a byproduct. A lot of times, your great players. I don't know how great a coaches are going to be. A lot of times, your great players were great players because they had a skill set or a skill or something that you really can't exactly coach all the time. For me, I was a very average player that got a chance to play, and I think just because I knew the game a little bit better and understood it, and I think JMO would be the first to tell you, right, he didn't have a lot of college football snaps, but he took a lot of mental reps and has taken advantage of every opportunity since he's been coaching. I think our guys recognize right away that he's a very good skilled teacher, but his care factor is off the charts, right? Like he's got a beautiful family, he's got a beautiful wife and 3 kids. Like he just constantly talks and references that. Like I will get a text message from JMO anytime, day or night, if something's dealing with one of his players, like he's engaged and he's in touch, right? Like even some players that aren't in our program now, I know the way they spoke about him before and after they left, about just the compassion and the appreciation for the way he does his job.
Same kind of line with Bart Miller. He seems to have really gotten that offensive line group to rally around him.
Yeah.
He's really preaching physicality among a lot of other things. Is it similar things for Bart Miller or other things that make him kind of special for players?
There's probably a lot of connect the dots, but also Bart is a very unique individual, to his own his own job and his own responsibilities. Bart, I knew right away as soon as I met him. Like I didn't know him from anywhere except for my O-line coach at the time, Bob Bostad, had recommended him. He had played for him, and then a guy that was just very impressive to me. That's why when I made transition in the middle of the season, I promoted him from a GA to full-time status, and was very impressive in that year, and then really tried to help him advance his career ever since we've been apart, to where when I got this job, I knew there was one guy I was calling. I only made one call, made an offer, and obviously he accepted. So Bart is very diligent, very focused. I think offensive linemen are unique in the way they get coached, just like any other position, but I think specifically offensive line, it's about how 5 guys work together. There's really not one other position, even defensive linemen, sometimes there's a linebacker in between them, right, or a defensive end that all of a sudden rolls in between them. Like offensive linemen, those 5 guys work together in every. So when we go down in the stadium, right, I know sometimes you guys aren't in there when they enter the field, but everybody kind of just walks in the stadium. The offensive line comes in together, like they all come in together, all of them, right? Like if 18 are practicing, they all walk in together. And I remember the first practice we're in the stadium. 2 of the freshmen both had didn't know the rule or somebody hadn't told them, and they got annihilated from about 30 rows up when the offensive line walked out and saw they were out there. So that's just kind of a small microcosm of the way Bart thinks. Yeah, so again, it's a great question. Don't want to speak on behalf of other people, right? Like, so one of the things I really believe in, I make seasonal goals, right, for myself, right? But like the seasonal goals for a team should be made by the team, right? So in the spring, I laid down goals of what I want them to accomplish in the winter first, right? Then I had laid down spring goals. Then I laid down summer goals. When we're basically 10 days out from fall camp, we'll have a goal meeting, and then it's what they believe the goals are, right? Like, it doesn't really matter what I think the goals should be. I have high expectations, right? And I believe in those things and what they are, but those are expectations that I believe in. I hope their expectations are even higher, right? Like, that's the challenge of coaching, is to get your players to think they can go even beyond what you believe. And on the same account, you want them to understand when you set a goal what it means and how you have a plan to go about doing it. So the goals that we have this year will be set by our players. With Josh? Josh Whitman? No. 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 Yeah, absolutely. I would tell you, 22, 11 offense, 11 defense starters, right? That is probably, I don't know the best way to say it. There's probably certain positions where guys are like, oh, he's the guy, right? And others are really like, but I kind of told them coming into fall camp, because we had a lot of transition players, right? Guys that come out of the portal and what. Let's just kind of say everybody's going to start in a spot. We put up the depth chart, and I kind of said, hey, this is where we are day one. Literally day two, things changed. Then day three, things changed. There's some guys that have continued to rise to the challenge, but there's probably been more fluidity at certain positions than others, right? But a guy like Doug Kramer, right? It's hard to see any other center playing better than Doug Kramer. There's certain positions that I think it's just a player does what he's capable of doing. You have that, but one part that we kind of stress to everybody is we're only as the strength of our biggest weakness, right? So like if there's another position that needs to come along by moving another player to that position or looking at different options, we've done that. We've exhausted it. We had a position change as early as today. Just if we feel that we need to add depth, that's definitely what we'll do. But we'll name a starter group. Probably I don't think I'll do it 10 days out, but 7 days out we'll let out a press release, and those will be our starters. Scrimmage is huge, and a little bit to depth, not to abort your question. Like I think it's big, right? Like, but the scrimmage is big because of the limited opportunities we have to play tackle football. Situational games. We'll have all the referees here. We're actually going to do as much as we can pregame to make it simulate. Our pregame meal will be 3.5 hours before the game. Normally it's 4, but just the way it works into our schedule that day. Officials, it's going to be a big scrimmage. It's again probably by position a little bit different, right? There's at the wide receiver position, I think Gio's kind of rotated and rolled through a variety of different guys. Tight end, you got Luke and DJ who've set themselves apart, but Tip and some other guys have really made nice strides, right? I think at the running back room, it's really 5 guys that we feel really good about, and who ends up getting that starting nod could be simply based on what the play is, what the situation is. So there's a lot of different things that go into it. I think as a whole, every head coach hopes that that you have as much similarity between your starter and your backup. But at certain positions, it's paramount that there's balance. But on the same account, at key positions where there's only one guy, I always think about this, like there's only one quarterback on the field, right? There's usually only one tailback, right? There's 4 DBs, there's 5 O linemen, there's 3 D linemen, there's 4 linebackers, however you want to say it. There's a little bit of flow there, right? But for the guys that play one position, there's only one of them out there at a time. You hope there's as much balance as you possibly could have. Yeah, I got back. I got back a couple times. I went back myself solo before spring ball started, and my wife and I snuck back for my mom and dad had their 83rd and 82nd and their 61st wedding anniversary. So that was awesome. And then, but just even today, we had a large group in the stadium. I believe over 400 level donors, premium seat owners, and I went and spoke to the group afterward, and like I had all kinds of people coming up afterwards. I'd played golf with your uncle. And there was some people that one of my former teachers' uncles was there, our nephews. It's just crazy. Randomness that'll happen. People email me or walk up to me that see me in different environments. If I'm in Chicago at the Cubs game, there's a lot of things in this world that you realize are very connected. You don't realize it at the time how much connection there is to what you're doing. It's awesome. It's awesome. It was great to go back to B1G, right to media days, even though it was in Indy. I just had so many memories of all the things there. Building relationships again with a lot of media that I've always been around. Whether it be play-by-play guys at other universities, guys I haven't seen forever. Get a chance to meet, obviously, the big one, a lot of the people in the Big Ten office that I became very close with when I was at this place before, at this conference before. So it's all been positive. But again, we haven't lost a game yet, so everybody's really excited. Yeah. Well, 3 actually, because Ben Miller, our special teams coordinator as well. But, Tony and I have known each other a long time, bounced around football ideas, but never worked together, right? So it's been fun for me. I think hopefully he'd tell you the same. But I think that offensive staff has done a nice job of blending everything together, right? So Bart and his experiences and his background with me, Gio and I have never worked together. I think those 2 guys have been a huge factor in what we're doing. I think Corey brings so much to the table about guys that were on the roster, and he's just got a demeanor and his attitude and his energy that's really been fun to watch him work into the group. And then Ben Miller, even though he's obviously our special teams coach, he's been around football a long time with Troy Calhoun, who's been very productive in a similar type of offense, which is why I hired him. Defensively, Ryan Walters is everything I could ever hope for and more. He's great rapport, high intelligence, great demeanor, really is a great leader in the fact the way he's rallied that staff around him and the way he puts faith in them and trust. Kevin Kane and Andy Boo, who I've been with a lot, both have been coordinators, so you just worry about bringing a coordinator into a coordinator room, and those 3 are absolutely awesome. Aaron Henry will be a coordinator, probably be a head coach at some point in his career. Jambo, the value he brings as a defensive line coach and the structure of those 5 guys in that room. And then just some of the support staff, GAs, analysts have been really fun to bring into the world. Yeah. Yeah. Probably no other room has had as much transition, right, from spring to where we are now as that room. A couple mainstays are, obviously Donnie has been impressive since I got here, and nothing's changed my opinion on him. Just continued to grow, very talented, probably the quiet leader of that group. Good work ethic, attitude, energy. But really he's kind of stood out. And then the combination of throwing Isaiah into that room and now Casey Washington, 2 guys that knew each other. I give a lot. I was doing a lot of research on Casey. He and I had a couple conversations before he transferred out, and when the opportunity came to bring him back, he was ineligible. He wasn't going to be eligible. I really didn't want to bring in another player that wasn't going to be eligible for the fall. So I was going through all kinds of things, and Casey just continued to shine through. And I began to ask players, right? I asked players, hey, what do you think? What's your opinion? Guys that I respect, I'd bring them in. And I specifically asked Isaiah, who had been a quarterback with him, right, who now was going to be in the wide receiver room. And I'm like, what do you think? And he just smiled and he said, Coach, he makes us better. And that spoke volumes to me about the way those 2 probably would interact together, but also the way they felt about each other. So that was a big one. Hightower's probably had as good a camp as he did in the spring, probably a little bit better. The freshman, Pat Bryant, is every day he kind of does one of those wow plays, like now he'll also be like wow, one of those. It's like depending on the play, but really, really engaging and fun, huge potential, off the charts. And then there's some guys. Battle obviously is a transfer from Northern Illinois. Peyton Vining is a transfer from small school. Jafar Armstrong has had a couple practices that have really jumped out and made a great impression. So there's a whole host of guys in there that continue to be very impressive. Yeah, I have no idea. I knew that we were bringing in obviously him and Battle, and knew the name, and I was an Illinois fan back in the day when obviously his dad. But like, I didn't even know they were related, right? Like I didn't know that was on the table when that all came up. And I actually said it to our staff, told our staff. So again, for those who are new to Illinois, we don't know what we don't know, right? I knew the name Battle, but I didn't know what it was. I mean, I didn't know that he was connected to him. So I'm just glad he's playing football. Yeah. What? Yeah. I can't stress enough how impressive of and sometimes people have to speak to be heard, right? Isaiah doesn't have to speak to be heard. He just has to walk, right? He just has to do what he does. He's got a presence and aura to him that I think is pretty impressive. And this whole thing as it evolved, I think I kind of knew where it was going to trend, and then the day when he wanted to do it and how he said it and how he communicated, and then it was literally instantaneous. You could see the effect he would have on this football team. And then things that he's done during fall camp have jumped out, right? So, like, the key is to, I think, not put too much on him, right? So he hasn't, we had a backed up scenario the other day, and he was lining up at wide receiver, and we, had a certain schematic play called, and he failed to execute, and it was the first time he's been in that position since, Pop Warner, right? And as coaches, I just brought that to their attention. Like, we all think he's got this incredible resource of knowledge and experience, but not at the wide receiver position. So he's got to go through some things there as well that we all have to be aware of, and don't put undue expectations on him, and let him just continue to be the great player he is.
24 years, I think. 24 August is coaching in college football camp.
Yeah.
3 years in the NFL, now 2 weeks back in college. What do you want to say about being back in college camp?
I think the development, the relationships, I can't tell you, how much I've enjoyed this group. Obviously, on the field, we're going to say and do things, and, I stress our best players, right? So we're going to have moments that we may not see eye to eye, but the only thing I'm trying to do is make them better. But, like, some off-the-field moments, we had we call them RTD, right? So run, tackle drills. The game of football is really based on how well you run with the football, how well you tackle the football, and how well you block and get off blocks for the football. And we had a drill that had all of our coaches. I had them demonstrate the drill, right? So Tony Peterson threw the ball to George McDonald. George McDonald advanced the ball, and he was angle tackled by Kevin and Ryan. And I just thought this is too good of an opportunity to let go by. So I text BP, DJ, OC, and Spoon, and I brought him in, and a lot of times I'll get up in front of the room and I'll correct the tape, right, and I'll rewind it, and I got a little telestrator, and I'll show it. I said, hey, you guys are going to critique this play, right? And they're like looking at, well, first when I sent all four of them a text, I think they all thought, what I just do, right? They came in like, whoa, what I just do. But I brought him. I brought him to my office and said, hey, you can say and do whatever you want to do. They're like, we got permission. I'm like, yeah, you got permission. And nobody knew this was going to happen, so I called him up, and it was 10 minutes of nonstop, absolute pandemonium, hilarious, and it crescendoed with Spoon on the end. They made Coach Walters stand up, and he just undressed him for about 3 minutes. And it just was that moment where you're like, all right, like we're getting this part together, right? They don't have to like each other, they don't have to love each other, but they have to respect one another and enjoy one another. And I think that definitely has happened. Yeah, it's just been so weird, right? Because, like, of COVID and we're, my wife and I, like, even, I try to sneak away and take my girls to preschool whenever I can, and I gotta, do certain things to get in the building and walk with them. Like, you just can't. It's just not quite normal yet, but it's absolutely awesome. I've loved every minute of it. It definitely is a different feel. Like when I was in the NFL, but it wasn't. It was more of as an assistant role. Like you're just not as visible, or however you want to say it. But yeah, to be in Champaign-Urbana and to have people come up to you whenever you're out, and say, again, we haven't lost a game, right? So we're positive, but there's just so much positive mojo. I just want to fill this stadium. That's the part that I want. And I understand people don't put money and they don't put support into something they don't believe in. And I'm going to show them what they can believe in and what we can represent them in. And that's something that I hope will continue to grow as we get closer to kickoff.
We have time for a couple more questions. Players are starting to come up.
I can't quite. In addition to winning, what am I hoping to accomplish? A good question, but it's a big one, right? Like, what I'm hoping to accomplish is what I want our players to do is represent us, right? I want us to be, smart, tough, dependable players. I want us to be able to, play a 4-quarter game and execute the things that I see during the course of the week. I think off the field, I want them to represent and make the people of Illinois happy, whether you're an alum, whether you're a donor, whether you're a fan, whether you're a resident of Champaign-Urbana. I want our players to represent, the Block I and what it means. And then in the bigger picture, if we can all go together, right, it's going to take all of us. That's something I kind of, whether I've talked to a group of, 4 donors, whether I talk to one donor and his wife or a wife and her children, whatever it is, it's going to take all of us to get Illinois to sustain success for a period of time, and that's the ultimate goal. That's something I always throw at Josh. We don't meet on goals, but we do have one common goal that he's brought me here to try and build sustained success for a long time, and that's what we're going to try to do, and we don't want to skip a step to get there. Yeah, we are. We're going to do, I know we have an event scheduled for the Thursday before our game week where I'll speak to the group and do some things to try and promote them to get them in the stadium. For a student, if you're here 18, 19, 20 years of age, right, during your lifetime, you've never seen Illinois, do the things that are going to make you get excited, right? But hopefully they understand, just like, they can't be blamed for things that happened before they came here. We can only handle what's in front of us. So it's going to be a huge outreach. I've talked to our players about ways to engage our student athletes, not only just when they're in the stadium, but also when they're in the classroom, when they're walking around campus. They have a common denominator with them, that they're, University of Illinois students and hopefully going to be University of Illinois alum, and that's something that you can never put a price tag on.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.